Hello again, everybody. It's March 3rd, 2026. Sports Chat here on Community Media, in your living room, maybe in the grocery store, driving with the phone in the cup holder. But it's just me tonight. I'm the lone wolf. Jeff right here is getting well-deserved R&R. He'll be back next week, but it's just me. And if you want to call in, 717-334-3000. Want to try to get as many callers in as possible. Talk about anything that's on your mind. Before I get to the hot seat shining star, I want to get back to the point of it's March, not May, it's March. It got me to thinking, is this the best sports month in the calendar? You look at the month of March, you have the WBC, the World Baseball Classic, starting tomorrow night. That will go for about 2 weeks. You got March Madness. You got regular season winding down this week. Some of the teams ended last week. You got conference championship, like I said, this week, next week. And then the big dance will be starting on 3 Thursdays from now, in the middle of the month. And then you got that going. And then at the end of the month, you got the regular season for baseball. So, when I was, typing out my outline, I didn't put that in there, but I'm like, you know what? It's March. Is that one of the greatest months in the calendar year? It kind of rivals, September. When you get to Labor Day and you got college football, NFL, you got, playoffs just right around the corner. So I think September's right up there. And then I would also say January is another big sports month with, the NFL playoffs, the playoffs in college football. So I would say that is the top three. Me personally, I will probably go March is the best month of the three, just with everything that's building in. You got hockey that's winding down, going into the playoffs. I guess the fourth month I would say is probably May. May, you got, the Kentucky Derby. You got more of the playoffs happening with hockey and basketball there. So that's what I would say is the big first place, second place, third place. First place is March. Second, I will give to September. Fourth would be January. And then May and then October. October, you got, baseball playoffs. So, that's where I'm looking at in that realm. But I just wanted to bring that up to you, that it's March, and I'm very excited about how the sports landscape is going to be throughout this crazy month of March. So, with that taken care of, Shining Star for this week, I am going with the Florida Gators. Florida Gators on Saturday, they won by 34 against Arkansas. And, the Gators have been playing very good basketball. And right now they're, ranked 6th, I believe it was. I forgot, I looked at the rankings this morning, but they have lots of big men on the board, getting rebounds. They are going to be very dangerous. And it wouldn't shock me if they're a 1 seed. We'll get to more in depth of college basketball later on in the show there. But I like where they're headed, in the SEC tournament. They're going to be the 1 seed. see what happens in that tournament, but that could raise them up, when the brackets come out there. But, the other part of the shining star is the local Thomas Houck. He became the 59th player in Florida Gator men's basketball to achieve 1,000 points. He's the second player this year to get 1,000 points. And just, he is averaging 17.9 points per game. He's getting a lot of boards, number 10, for the Gators. Now, my hot seat, it's very, let me say this way. It's very different because it's the Milwaukee Bucks and the Chicago Bulls. Now, the reason why they're both the hot seat, they actually played each other on Sunday. The Milwaukee Bucks were up 89-81 late in the third quarter. They didn't score a basket, a two-pointer, three-pointer, a free-throw. They missed 17 consecutive shots in that 7.5-minute span. They were on the opposite, the end of the 27-0 run that the Bulls went. And they lost by 8 points or such there. It was awful, going into that fourth quarter. So on the flip side, the Bulls won that game. They won their first. They're 1-0 in the month of March. Pretty good, you think there. Not so much in the month of February. Their last win before that, their win on Sunday was January 31st. They went 0-11 in the month of February, and that's their the first time in their 60-year history that they went 0-4 in a month. So in that span, I have to give the hot seat to both teams that played both. They're playing against each other, so it's not too often that a hot seat is like that. Now we have a voice message about a Shining Star hot seat. So we're going to dial that up in just a second. Sean, did we have that video for the voicemail? Okay, it's all good, all good. Yep, here's the voice message for the hot seat Shining Star that we got earlier today.
Good evening, Corey. My Shining Star is Sonny Styles, the safety converted to linebacker from Ohio State, who received a 10 out of 10 relative athletic score and was ranked first out of about 3,000 linebackers who have participated at the Combine. He absolutely killed it, and I also saw that he would also be a 10 out of 10 if he was a wide receiver. So just some crazy stuff from him that will propel him into the top 5 to top 10 for sure. I have two hot seats. First off, Jurickson Profar, who received another full year suspension for using PEDs, which he just did not learn from his last mistake. And my other one is Bruce Pearl, the former Auburn men's basketball coach who went on CBS saying that Miami, Ohio, who is currently undefeated, should not make the tournament if they lose a game in favor of his Auburn Tigers, who are like one game above 500. And his son is the coach, so you got a little bias going in there. But the Red Hawks are having an amazing year and should not be discredited.
All right, that was Brady from afar, giving his Shining Star hot seat there. And I agree with him, with Sonny Styles. He had an impressive showing at the Combine. I really didn't watch too much of the Combine. I was getting, bits and pieces of it there, but, his 40 time, was amazing there. You know, the hot seat there, I was going to place Jerks and Profar on there. And, once Brady told me he was going to put him in the hot seat, I'm like, well, you just, put that on the voice message there. This is back-to-back years. Back-to-back years for Jerks and Profar. I mean, how do you, do this? Last year, 80 games, or I think it was 81, half the season, and you do it again. The whole season wiped away. You look at, his tenure with the Braves. It started, he signed a 2-year deal. I think it might be a 3, but I'm pretty sure it's a 2-year deal. And right off the jump, you get a suspension like that. So then you look at, all right, you're going to come back at the second part of the season, but you're not eligible for the playoffs. The Braves didn't go to the playoffs to begin with. But you hurt your team, and now you do it again. Now it's 162, and if he does it, in 2026, he's banned. That's 3 strikes right now. You have 2 strikes. So I'm right there with Brady. And then with his second hot seat there, I do agree with him, with Bruce Pearl. In the sense, I'm half with Brady, and the other side I'm kind of iffy. I don't think Auburn should be in the tournament. They are 1 game under 500. I think there's other teams that are deserving for it at large, one of the 37 teams. Auburn, I don't see. Now, if Miami, Ohio would lose in the MAC tournament, or if they lose tonight or Friday, I think their chances of making the tournament is 50-50. Because you're kind of looking at other teams, their resume of who they played. Now, I look at Miami, Ohio. They squeaked it out with Western Michigan. It was a back-and-forth type of game. They're down for the bulk of the game, and they came back and won on the road. So they have 13 road wins. I get that. It's going to be tough to take a team that goes undefeated in the regular season and in conference play. But their schedule ranked versus other teams, they're ranked 350 out of 366 teams. So to my point with what Brady was saying, that they shouldn't be penalized, I think it's a very, slippery slope there. I think they do get in, but I don't think they should be out with Auburn getting in over them. Before we get to the caller, we have our current banner sponsors: Adams County Community Foundation, Adams County Sports Hall of Fame, Adams County Trout Unlimited, Classic Antique Innovation, Destination Gettysburg, Exchange Club of Hanover, Gettysburg Railway. To become a sponsor for $80 a month or $880 a year, it's 12 months for the cost of 11 months. You can go to communitymedia.net/sponsorship, and this will help have your name out there when we're doing programs and such, and have the focal point with that. So that's our banner sponsor. And we got a call. Welcome here to Sports Chat on this first Tuesday of March.
4 for 4, Corey.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's
Can't let you hang tonight by yourself.
he's getting a little R&R. He's getting a little R&R. I think he's at the airport, and he will be back next week there. So he was a little 50-50 going into the weekend. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it in sports chat. I said, that's okay. You just give me the keys and I will, fly the ship down, or I will coast the ship into the dock there. So here I am.
Anyways, Louisville was ranked 24. They're like 27 now. They're 2 out. They lost to Clemson. They lost by 80 to 75 by 5 points. And they were 8 for 30 for threes. Now tonight they play Syracuse. I'm going to watch it on the ACC network at 9 o'clock. It's their senior night, and then they play at number 23. Miami on Saturday, so if they can win the next 2, maybe they can get back into the top 25 again. But, I kind of, like you, the polls, it's going to come down to how they do in the ACC tournament and then bracketology, who they get in the tournament.
Yeah, I really don't pay too much attention with the polls. I mean, like I was just mentioning, just a few minutes ago with with Miami, Ohio. I mean, if they're undefeated, they're not going to be, right now they're ranked 18th, I think it is. I know they're in the teens, but they're not going to be the 6th team in the brackets when they come out on that Sunday. I look at Miami, Ohio being about like a 10 seed if they make it. So when you
Just a comparison, it's like James Madison. They finish 11-1 or 12-0. Are they in the same situation as Miami or Ohio in basketball?
slightly a little bit different. The reason why I say slightly a little bit different is just if they don't win the MAC tournament, then they come at large where they're going up against different schools. Where James Madison, they won their conference championship there. So it's just slightly. I look at it different from basketball to football, where it's less teams in that umbrella. Where basketball, there's so many. If they don't win their conference championship, they're going up against the likes of St. Clair, Ohio State, VCU, Auburn, etc. With those 4 spots there. So I look at it a little bit different.
Hey, now, Corey, I had some good news from my friend Donnie at work because, Louisville had one of the top running backs in the nation, and the ACC, Isaac Brown, runs a 4.1. So anyways, he'll be a junior this year, and I asked Donnie a couple weeks ago, and he had 2 other schools offering, Mississippi and Texas. And I asked him today, who did he pick? And he picked Louisville. That was so great.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
You had said that too, Corey. You had thought last week when I asked you that. I said, you think he goes to Texas or Mississippi? And you said he probably, like Donnie said, he'd probably stay at Louisville.
Yeah, I when you said that, I was kind of back and forth a little bit there, but it's you can never tell with the student athletes of where their head's at sometimes. And
now, Corey, the other running back, he's also going to be a junior this fall. Their roommates, Tewan Brown, and he was a 1,000-yard rusher. So I know for a fact that those 2 running backs are going to be the best running tandem in the ACC and possibly now in the country.
more likely than not, there, yeah, just because when you look at running backs, it's the running back depth chart is different from quarterback because when a quarterback, primarily you're the guy the whole way through the game, where a running back, last year with Penn State, they had 2 running backs that were the bell cows all throughout the season. So with Louisville, with their running backs, I can see it working, with the carries and such there. Other teams do the same thing.
Straight running back, number 26, Duke Watson. Donnie said he went to Central Florida. But that's okay. What they would do with him is this. They would bring him in after they ran those 2 workhorses, Tewan Brown and Isaac Brown. And by around the end of the 3rd quarter, beginning of the 4th, they would bring Watson in with fresh legs. So he kind of figured with those 2 running backs coming back their junior years, I guess he figured he'd go somewhere else and start, and he is. Central Florida. Now how good are they on the average?
That I'm not too sure with Central Florida there, but usually the third string running back. They're looking for more playing time. Where the 1 and 2, they're kind of getting the bulk of it. So he's probably going to Central Florida where he's getting more of a workload. So.
Right. And I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Isaac Brown is a guy that you can hand the ball off, and he's got moves, and if he gets into the secondary, he's gone. Are you familiar with Isaac Brown?
Not too familiar. Just I heard the name a little bit there. Yeah.
But I am so glad that he come back. I guess his heart was there in Louisville. Do you think that if he went to Texas, he might have got lost in the shuffle in Mississippi with these two-star quarterbacks? Arch Manning and then the other guy from Mississippi. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where he'll stand out more in Louisville?
Yeah, it's very well possible. I mean, you stay where you feel more familiar with the situation there. Where if you go to Texas, you might not be the big dog, or Mississippi.
That's what
So
he was saying. Do you think that he might get lost in the shuffle with Mississippi or Texas?
good possibility. That's the unknown of the transfer portal. Is are you going to the spot that you feel is going to give you the next opportunity to get to the next level? And that's what all these, well, I don't want to say all these college athletes, but for the bulk of them, they're trying to get to the next level, to the pros. So
I thought that he would opt out. There's a part of me that thought he would go to Mississippi because they were in the playoffs in Texas, Arch Manning. And I thought he would be out there more in the spotlight where the NFL would look at him more because, Mississippi and Texas is more of a football school than Louisville. But Louisville has done good well over the, the past decade or whatever, even back when they had Lamar Jackson. So the program is getting better in Louisville. They're more of a basketball school, but they're always like anywhere from the top to the middle of the pack in the ACC in football. They're never bottom feeders.
well, I mean, you look at the whole transfer portal itself there in the NIL, it's a different ballpark because you look at Indiana, 3 years ago, everyone looked at them as a basketball school and not a football. And Indiana goes and wins the national championship. My comparison in basketball is Nebraska. Nebraska was never really known for its basketball. It was football, even though they haven't really done anything in the last, 25, 30 years, but it was still, the focus was Nebraska football. But now Nebraska basketball is right up there, and, they're ranked, in the top 10, 9 in the AP poll. So.
Hey, Corey, I keep on telling my friend Donnie, what's this Lincoln's guy's last name?
Lincoln what?
Lincoln, the quarterback that's coming over from the Buckeyes to the Cardinals.
Lincoln Keyholtz. Yeah, that's.
How do you spell that?
I can just in a second here. I don't know the spelling off top of my head here, but.
Is he a runner too?
He's more of like a pocket passer. He'll run a little bit there, but the last name spelling is Kienholz. Keyholtz.
That's it. Too complex, too computerized scientific. Hey, but anyways, do you think that Lincoln's going to be thinking he's got these two studs behind him?
I guess. I mean, this will give him a good opportunity to, get playing time. We have seen, backup quarterbacks for Ohio State that transferred. Some of them worked and some of them didn't. You look at.
Who won the Heisman was the LSU quarterback?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was getting ready to say the Brown for Cal. He transferred to Cal last year and he lost his starting job. So it doesn't always happen like, you transfer, you're going to be the next superstar. So, you look at it, I think he's going to, I'm not going to say flourish, but he should do well enough, to help the Cardinals, in the ACC.
You have two really good running backs everybody rather than like nobody's. And it's got to help his confidence because, it should open up the pass, right, Corey?
Yeah, that's, you have the run game. The run game works the pass, and, the pass game, opens it up there. So, if you don't have a running game, you're one-dimensional, and, that hurts you, going down the field. So, I wish all the best there for Keyholtz. And I think...
Is that his last name, Keyholtz?
Yeah, Keyholtz. It's I'm not sure exactly where it's from, but it's when you look at it, it doesn't sound like how it's read, but it's Keyholtz.
I remember that Keyholtz. I remember a key and then Holtz.
Yes. Yep.
Hey,
Yep.
Corey, when Ohio State recorded him, what star was he?
I believe 4, but
For?
I don't think he was a 5. I'm pretty sure he was a 4-star recruit out of high school there.
Now, was Julian saying a 5?
Yeah, he was a 5. He was from Alabama, and the reason why he transferred from Alabama to Ohio State was when Nick Saban retired, and then that was the dominoes,
So
for
going
that.
into preseason last year, right, you had him and Lincoln Keyholtz. And was there another quarterback that was bound for the starting position?
Yes, that was the quarterback right now for Pittsburgh. That was why am I blanking? Will Howard was the starting quarterback. So that was the depth chart in 2025.
Will Howard, Kansas State.
Yes, Will Howard there. Yep.
So yeah, I didn't know. Last August,
And
that they were starting. So did Keyholtz
he was
take
actually.
the second string behind Julian Sane?
Yeah, he was the second string, and then once he was, he had 1 year, of, eligibility. I think he has 2 years of eligibility there. He could go pro next year if he really wanted to, but he wasn't going to get the starting job, and especially the other quarterbacks behind him in the quarterback room for Ohio State. He just elected to transfer and went to Louisville there.
Yeah, I guess he didn't feel comfortable. But obviously, Jeff Brom, who's a quarterback himself with Louisville, and he was a good one, great coach. He's in the last 3 years that he's been here, the first year he had 10 wins, the second year 9, and then last year 9. So he's pretty consistent. And a lot of them games, they lost close games. They lost 2 games last year in the overtime, which they could have had 11 wins. He's a really good coach, and he knows what he's getting. In the last 3 years, 3 years ago, he had Jack Plummer, Jake Plummer's son from the Arizona Cardinals years back, which he played for Arizona State. And then 2 years ago, they had Tyler Shuck, who ended up with the Saints in the second round, number 9 pick. And then last year, they had Miller Moss that came in from USC. And I was kind of a disappointment. I'd say on a scale from 1 to 10, I'd probably give Miller Moss a 7. And I think that Miller Moss might get drafted maybe like the 6th or 7th round, Corey, as a backup. You think so?
Yeah, I agree. And then, this is the way of, how college football is. I think I said this last week or the week prior, is I don't see, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, or, the big name schools out there having a true freshman. I think Julian Sane is going to be the last true freshman for Ohio State that starts. You have a veteran quarterback. You look at the last couple playoffs, the championship, the game itself, with Indiana and Miami, Carson Beck and Mendoza, transfer quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks. You look at the previous year.
Corey, it just seems like you were saying earlier, there's a lot of more stud quarterbacks in college, and only maybe a handful in college running backs. So Donnie at work told me, he said Isaac Brown and T1 Brown, especially Isaac, should stick out because all the Penn State running backs are gone. The Love guy from Notre Dame's gone. Is the Oregon running back gone too?
Yeah, I mean that's your running backs right there. Yeah.
That's why I'm thinking Isaac Brown should be one of the front runners in the, in college football. He should be one of the top 3 running backs, coming into this season in September.
Yeah, like you're saying, that clears the field, but there's going to be other running backs out there that is going to get their reps, and they're going to be right up on the top of the running back top 10 running backs
So
in the
basically,
2026
there is
season.
Somebody's out there that's unknown right now that will be really good.
It's all-
just that we know Isaac Brown's good, and he could be one of the front runners.
Yeah, it's always the case. I mean, it's just not really supply and demand. It's just more they're gone. Here comes the next group of guys that are going to be taking the mantle, and they're going to get their fair share of dues of running the football and making their
What's so
time.
ironic, Corey, is one of the teams that was on the table for Isaac was Mississippi. Okay, and it's just ironic that the first game you were telling me, and Donnie was telling me too. I guess it's a neutral site in Nashville. They play Ole Miss.
Yep.
So that will tell me really how kind of good Louisville is to a certain degree.
Yeah, I would agree because that's a good barometer test there of where you're at there. I mean, it's early in the season there, but that's a good litmus test of where you're at. Coming out of camp there and before conference.
So Donnie was telling me it's in Nashville, and he thinks that possibly that Louisville will have the home advantage. Do you believe that?
I guess maybe to a degree there, but I mean, both teams can travel, so I don't think it's going to be that far outlandish, of a home split there.
At the end of the preseason, at the end of the regular season last year, they had Louisville ranked number 34 because in the top 25 they had them 9 down, so they would have been 34. Do you think with Isaac Brown and T1 Brown coming back their junior year, do you think that Louisville could possibly be ranked in the top 25?
To start the season, or
Yeah, to start the season, top 25.
maybe, but I said this before. I mean, the AP preseason polls is just water cooler talk to its finest. I mean, it's just you look at it and
stayed in the top 5 and look what they ended, not even ranked.
yeah, I mean it happens every year. You look at it. This team. You could look at 5 teams that are top 25, and they're nowhere near the top 25 or top 40 for that matter. So, maybe, but I don't really, put too much chalk with preseason rankings and all that there.
Right. Yeah. So who do you like in tonight's game? Syracuse and Louisville?
You look at Syracuse, Louisville. I kind of give the slight edge to the Cardinals, but it's it wouldn't shock me if Syracuse pulls that game off, but I'm going to go Louisville.
Okay. Hopefully they can beat Miami. Miami's pretty tough. They're up 23 now. So, but I just think that the Duke is clear above everybody else. I mean, their home games, they're just crushing everybody. I was surprised because I thought Virginia would give a run for their money, but they smashed them by like 20-something points, 25 points or something. They beat Louisville by 32. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're a head and heels above everybody else. You think that they would be the candidate to win it all?
I think it's 3 teams out there that could win it all. I mean, I think right now the tier is Arizona, Michigan. I think it's Arizona, Michigan, and Duke. That's your top 3. Then if you go a tier below that, I will go UConn, Houston, and Florida. That's my 6 that I feel is going to win the national championship. Beyond that, it gets a little dicey. I guess
Complicated.
not really complicated. I just don't have the confidence, beyond those 6 there to win.
Right.
But I mean, if I have to predict a team that's going to win the whole thing, I'm leaning towards Duke. I think it might be Duke's year. Just the way that they're playing, the Boozer brothers is just insane of just how they're playing as freshmen.
Donnie, my friend at work, I was telling you earlier, he was telling me that Duke's got the top recruiting class again.
Yes, I mean it's copy paste. I mean, it's like this every year, so it doesn't shock me, and just the way that they're.
But if there's one team out there I don't like, it's Duke in basketball, and it's the Irish in football. Mm-hmm. Like two teams I do not like, Corey. I'll keep it in.
Yeah, it's I'm not a big Duke fan itself there, but I give respect where I see it, and I don't see too many flaws. But anything could happen in March there.
It comes down, to it's not even about the coach; it's the players. They don't even have Krzyzewski, and they're still the best.
Just the way they transition, they haven't missed a beat. I mean, yeah, they lost games here and there, but they're still a dominant force, and the train has not, went off the rails.
Yeah, it just seems like year after year they get to the top. Even back, way back, they just continue to just spit out all these great players.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina tries to match them, but I just think that when it comes down to it, I think they have the edge all the time, Duke.
Mm-hmm. Well, Carl.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch at 7 o'clock tonight. There's also a good game coming on, Corey. Who wins this one?
Okay.
The Tigers or the Tar Heels?
I mean, you look at UNC. They're trying to get that. Their seeding. I mean, this is a big seeding. For the ACC, for next week for the tourney. I'll probably go with UNC being the home team, but that could go either way.
When Louisville played Clemson on Saturday, I just didn't feel comfortable because Clemson had lost 4 in a row. I had thought that they were due for a win, and I was right. They want just Louisville just caught Clemson in a big time.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of figured, it didn't surprise me that Louisville, but they only lost by 5, Corey, 80-75.
Yep.
And they were 8 for 30. Even if they would have only made a couple more threes, they would have won. It's like Seth Greenberg said, "You live and die by the sword."
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And Louisville pops those threes more than anybody. But at home, they're a different team. They make a lot of threes at home. I mean, they just smacked NC State 118 points. There's no way that they can score 118 on the road. It's just different team on the road. They're more tense and tight. They force shots. They have turnovers. They can't feed off the crowd because they're not at home. I've studied them and I've watched them. It's so much different. It's like Jekyll and Hyde, day and night. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out tonight and blow the doors off the Orangemen by 20.
You just never know. Yeah, I mean, just the way things are going, it's just I think that was the perfect analogy is the Jekyll and Hyde, throughout their season there. Well, Carl, we're going to be wrapping up.
Good to talk to you, Corey.
Yep.
#1 station, ACTV. I love it, man. So hopefully I can make it 5 for 5 next week, and you got your sidekick there, Mr. Jeff Cook.
Yep, Jeff will be back at the helm next week on the 10th there. So
I made it 4 for 4.
I will send him the message after the show there. So have a good rest of your Tuesday there, Carl.
Go Cardinals. I hope they beat the Orangemen.
Yep.
Talk to you later, Corey.
All right, have a good one. Before we wrap up the show, we do have another voice message there from Brady there. This is more of the March Madness there, so we're going to play that there before we end the show. I'll give a little thoughts after.
The calendar has officially hit March, and it's getting towards the greatest time of the year where March Madness comes on. I'm a huge college basketball fan, and when you're online, you have Arizona, Michigan, Duke, or the field, and I'm gonna have to go with Arizona out of those teams. And the Big 12 in general, they have a very quality teams. Like I think it's 5 top 15 teams in Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State, Houston, and Texas Tech. Who Texas Tech just lost their best player and ended up getting better somehow with their shooters around them. So I think the Big 12 is the conference to beat this year. They've been great all year. And I think that Arizona has, they said on the broadcast last night, they have like 8 starters because 3 guys are so good off the bench. So I think that their depth will be able to compete with anyone. I know Duke has the length and Michigan has the size, but I like Arizona. I mean, Tommy Lloyd's an inexperienced coach in March, has some March losses, but I think this is the year he finally gets it done.
You know, looking at that there, the Big 12 is definitely the hardest conference, I feel, of the Power 4, or I guess Power 5 with the Big East as well. You know, going through that, you know, that ringer, I would like to see the championship game with Arizona Duke. I think that would be very fascinating if that would, you know, the stars line up perfectly in the, you know, in a Final Four like setting. So, you know, if it's not Duke, I would, you know, my second pick would probably be Arizona, but it's definitely, you know, those 3 is the class of the field right now. Some other some points before we wrap up the show. Let me see on my outlines of some points I want to address. You know, very fast, rapid fire. The Lions traded their running back, David Montgomery, to Houston. Detroit gets a 26th fourth rounder for this year, and next year they get the 7th round of the 2027 draft. This kind of clears up the cap space, 3.5 to 6 million for the Lions, where the Texans get a veteran running back with Montgomery, but it's going to probably be a timeshare, you know, with Woody Marks at the helm there. The franchise tag has come and gone, and Breece Hall for the running back for the Jets have been tagged, and Colts have tagged Daniel Jones, and that's going to be a hefty for, I think, $36 million for the Colts there. So we got the World Baseball Classic starting tomorrow night, and, you know, see what happens. That is the show for today, March 3rd. This was the 922nd episode of Sports Chat here on Community Media. In 15 minutes, it will be trivia with the biggest minds of in the world going head-to-head. I'll be a panelist, see how I do. I will venture to say I'll probably finish 7th. I could be wrong. I might have a stellar day if it's sports. But until next week, folks, have a good rest of your evening and good night.